Welcome to the CCW for March the 3rd, 2026. We will acknowledge that the town of Cardston is located on traditional Blackfoot Confessory territory. Are there any additions to the agenda? If so, not, I'll take a motion to adopt it. There. All in favor? Opposed? Looks like a relatively quick meeting tonight. I won't jinx it by saying that. I'm assuming we have not ordered supper, but anyhow.
We actually bring something right at 5:30.
Oh, okay.
This was a tough one. We thought you could go 3 hours,
sure.
you could go a half hour. We weren't really sure.
You don't ever know for sure. Okay, what else got next here? We need an adoption of the, there's no delegation, so we need adoption of the minutes from February 3rd, 2026. Councillor Kenley for the 2026 February 3rd at CCW. All in favor? Okay. Bylaw policy and remuneration policy. Let's get right at her here.
I wanted to have some discussion on this tonight. It's a relatively new policy for your term, and we're finding administratively just some gaps. And I don't want to get further into the term where things aren't being applied the same across the board. So what I did is I've got a couple of examples, and I will preemptively ask for forgiveness. These are some that have been turned into me lately, and it's not because I think they're inappropriate at all. They were just great examples to illustrate some of the gaps within the policy. But as I put in the backgrounder, Section 1.7 states that your per diem is for approved committee meetings, public events, or parades. And so it begs the question, what makes them approved? And is it reasonable that anything that falls outside of your one committee meeting, maybe a month, has to have a separate resolution to make it approved? By the way, I would err on the side of that's maybe not reasonable. It's just administratively heavy. And so before this policy, the last term's policy, they had a base rate for councillors and the mayor. And that base rate contained their pay, and you were expected to attend your committee meetings once a month, and then any above and beyond, you could put in a per diem. The previous council chose, and three of you that are still here, chose to take that base rate away and just go purely on an attendance-based compensation. Well, what happens then is we get, and the mayor, I'm going to pick on you a little bit because you have a bit of a unique thing too. So the mayor still has a per diem. And so it might be reasonable that she would attend certain things without charging compensation, but you don't have a base per diem. So the question is it reasonable to attend anything without any compensation? Right. So this is some of the challenges that we've got. And again, I'll give an example, and I want to also clarify, nothing wrong with these, but I won't even say which counselor then, but a counselor submitted a half day for attending the Cardston Chamber AGM. Perfectly appropriate for a counselor to attend the AGM. It's not offensive at all. It's not an approved committee. The letter of the law says, well, it doesn't fit. Mayor Brown, I'll pick on you because everyone knows, but you had a couple of days in Edmonton.
Sure did.
And so there wasn't a resolution to say that we're going to send the mayor and we're going to pay all the costs and per diem. I don't know what the letter of the law would suggest to do with that. And so I want to just put it out there. Any of you that have been on council before in any term know that you can debate your compensation policy a lot, right? It's uncomfortable, first of all, generally to debate your own compensation. But secondly, there's probably not a perfect system. And so I just want to get some feedback on how do we deal with, Councillor Winder, I think I heard something like you were asked to go just help with the Historical Society to do some pictures for something. It wasn't even really the committee per se. They actually wanted your beard more than anything. So they were seeking out people in the community with a historic looking beard. Yeah. So is that a committee? Is that a half day per diem? Right? And was it less than an hour? Because there's stuff in there about that. And so I'm really just looking for feedback on how we should look at managing, things that are good to have a counselor at, but maybe you didn't get a resolution of council to go. And that could be because of timing and all manner of things. How do we want to address that?
Councillor Kelly, then the mayor.
I was just gonna say, I just think that's anything that we've been invited to, that we should like. I mean, Mayor Brown's was, to me, it's just an obvious thing that she should be compensated for that. But just anything that maybe we've been invited to from the public, whether we go or not, like I think that's if we're giving our time and we're bringing council's minds or our own mind as a councillor to it, like I think we should be compensated for that. If it's just like going, I don't know, like Councillor Winders, I don't know, like that's kind of like, I don't know, right?
Well, I submitted it.
Yeah, no, and I don't know what the right answer is to that one, or just to like that kind of in general.
Giving up a Saturday morning to go help, like I don't know. That's how I saw it.
No.
Mayor.
So I think, so my frustration having, and there are a few of us that had the old way of doing it, my frustration with this way, and that's something that we agreed that we would relook at this, is I'm not loving it. And the reason I'm not loving it is, for example, I have a counselor who got asked to go to the AGM of the chamber. Great. Well, he's representing us. So great. He goes on, but he hasn't been approved by us, even though I knew about it. Most of us knew about it. And I didn't have to go, thank heavens. He was asked, he got to go. Perfect. But then he goes online to try and submit it, and we go to the pull down. Well, where is it? And so when I brought this up a few months back, I said, the majority of mine that are in there don't fit under one of those. Mine are, I said, there needs to be like an other. So I feel like every time I'm submitting, I'm then having to send Jeff and Jill just a little, like, this was actually what it was, but I put it under this because it doesn't feel like, it feels like I want it to say I went to this. Like, I want clarity, and I just don't feel the way it is, we're getting that. And I feel like because of that, we've got some counselors that are frustrated, and so they're like, well, whatever. Well, that's not the point of this. The point of it isn't that my counselors are not paid to go to things. They should be getting paid. They just should. So we need to.
Help yourself.
So, in support of what the mayor is saying, 6 out of 7 of us had our little tete-a-tete with the county.
Yep.
Yeah.
We get paid for that, or do we?
And those of you that asked me would know I said, yeah, you should
Yes.
submit for that. That would make sense.
That's why I believe, if again, like I just said,
Oh, okay.
if
That's still, you're the one that still hasn't done.
Okay.
Okay.
I hadn't either.
if we're invited to something as a counselor and we're giving our time, I think we should be paid for it. That's my
Agreed.
opinion.
Hold on. Counselor Selfrey,
No, I'm done.
finished?
Sorry, jumped in.
So with that county meeting, there's no drop down for that one either,
Nope.
right? So
So that's why I wrote a paper to him, because I didn't know what else to do.
I didn't submit yet because I just didn't know.
Agreed. So this is where we're at.
And also, going back to the chamber one, Gilbert had invited me back a long time ago to come and support the chamber, and so I did, and I committed to 2 tickets. But then we learned that Gary was asked to speak at it, so I was going to drop out.
Just
But then he called me up and said, no, we really want you there. I had no plans on submitting the claim because I was just going as a business person.
Sure.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
That
well,
particular meeting, I was wearing 2 hats. I was there on behalf of Community Futures and the town.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I would like some clarification on, I understand the committee meetings that we go to, so we can submit for those, but then what happens like with FCSS if there's 3 or 4 other programs that we're visiting and stuff? Are any of those eligible for?
Great question.
Yeah.
I guess the question I have, Jeff, is what's easiest for you and administration to administer this so that you can do what you need to do and we're not frustrated? Does that sound?
Sure.
Yeah. Can you put it into another section like she mentioned, other, and then under that section we can explain what we did. Simple as that. I'm going to a thing that's on Thursday. It's not on the list. So can I just not put that in there and say this is where I was at? We need to trust ourselves a little bit, and that we aren't doing anything frivolous, but
And I would also say, like, for example, I too got invited to the chamber thing. So I think if we hear so and so counselor is going, then we don't need 4 of us to go. Like, as soon as I heard a counselor was going, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I wasn't wearing 2 hats though. That's different. But for me personally, so I don't I think we would have to be careful, right? So if one of the counselors at the museum called me and wanted my hair in the picture, which they didn't, which is rude, Counselor Winder, but
we'll have a beard.
they wanted his beard, but not my hair. That's fine. But you know, like if there was 3 of us there, well, maybe that's not appropriate. But for one, it's appropriate.
Like your committee inviting you to come to something. Like,
Yeah.
That's
That's his wheelhouse. He should be the one that's
because
there
if we all got invited, it'd be like I think Council Winder should represent for that.
and should get paid for it.
Not all of us.
Agreed. Yeah, that's what
I will say that as far as the rest of the communities around Southern Alberta, we're not overpaid by a long shot. So I think if you feel like when I had this meeting last month, whatever it was, I just mentioned to the mayor.
Yep.
And I popped it in there, but that was before we got the whatever list.
drop down.
So is there some way you can put that in as others so we don't have 15 different other things on that list?
So it isn't a matter of what we can put in the system, it's a matter of your policy. The only thing in the letter of the law says you
Yeah.
can charge for is an approved committee.
That's right.
That's why that's what's on the list.
That
So
should probably change.
we can amend the policy, the list is easy, that's simple
Then we
keystrokes.
need to.
I think we need to just, if I could throw, we want to be a bit cautious. I've seen remuneration abused in the past. And it depends how you feel about potential disparities in compensation at the end of a year. Right now, you are trending only on 2 months, by the way. And in January, I think you had 5 council meetings with special meetings.
Yeah.
But right now, you are trending probably, I would say, considerably higher compensation than previous years. Not a little. I would say considerably higher, based on charging for everything. Because again, in the previous policy, you had a set compensation that covered your 1 committee meeting a month up to 4 hours, I think is how it read at the time. So we do want to watch that. And we want to be careful, but we have a very small sample size.
Well,
to see.
January throws a big into
For
that
sure.
too.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
We
so,
just want to watch that a little bit.
like this previous month, February is pretty standard for what I did. And I think most of us will be like that unless it's the odd meeting that you get invited to. So I certainly didn't make as much in February as I did in January, not even half.
But even for myself, not having been mayor before, the question is, well, how many of them my meetings, because I'm not billing for all of my meetings
Right.
that I go to. I'd be killing it if I was, but I'm not. And so I'm always like, should I put in for this one? Was this you know what I mean? Like I don't like there being a gray area. I'd much rather the policy, which it means the policy needs to be changed. I would rather the policy be crystal clear on the mayor gets paid and that it covers this. So I don't have to be, should I be, like
So you do get a whatever.
per diem
Yeah. the
or
rest-
not
Base.
honorarium.
Being an
Thank you.
honorarium.
I do.
The rest of us don't have, which
Agreed.
makes it a little confusing for you.
Agreed. It
Is part
is.
of my honorarium or should I be billing for it?
Agreed.
So if we take away your honorarium, just bill for everything over.
And that's just, I'm just saying that's something I think we all need clarity on. So I think we definitely need to revisit this policy.
Just for comparison purposes, talking with a county colleague, like they get a flat rate. It's basically $1,600 a month. That's what they get paid. That includes their council meetings, 2 of them at however long, 8 hours or whatever, and then their committees.
Not anymore. They just changed it. And they're super upset about it. It got changed right before Christmas.
To this, they used to get paid per
Yes.
meeting,
Yes, that's right.
and now they've gone
That's
They're
right.
upset
to
that they're at 6.
this is what you
Yes,
get
that's
per
right.
month. That's all you're getting.
Yep,
And
They've had to have voted it in.
they did.
Okay.
School division
Just
does
some of the
this.
counselors weren't happy about it.
School division does the same thing. They get paid this
Yeah.
much a month, plus they get a phone and that's it.
So
That's not terrible.
no, all great, and Mayor, I think you're bang on that it isn't obvious what that honorarium includes for sure. Now you get called out to tons of stuff. No, I don't think anyone's arguing that, by the way.
I mean,
But one of the things you want to be careful of in a policy is that it's basically a policy that says, well, everything's up to your individual discretion. That's a tough policy because it's going to be applied very differently. And I'll use your example, Councillor Smith, not to be condemning at all, but let's say Councillor Smith, who's on FCSS, says, you know what, we're going to set up a meeting, we're going to set up a program visit every day for 2 weeks. And so I'm going to charge a half day every day for 2 weeks to the program visits. Well, first of all, the counselor isn't compelled to do those visits. It's her discretion whether that's important or not. Probably fine. And now all of a sudden it's like, we just got $4,000 worth of claims from Councillor Smith in a month. And if you put that time in, maybe that's appropriate. But yeah, it's very, this policy, I mean, the three of you were around the table when I remember Councillor Burton just saying, well, I like this idea of, it's an eat what you kill thing. It's whatever time you put in and that's what you paid for. And we're just seeing some gaps. That's what I'm throwing out, and I want to make sure it's equitable amongst you.
Yeah.
And that we handle it appropriately. I don't want to get to the end of the year and I got a counselor saying, well,
That was me.
yeah, that's right. Well, but you
I
don't want a
should've put
counselor
into
saying,
that.
well, my
All those things.
compensation is 10,000 lower than Counselor B.
agreed.
And now it's the mayor's fault because that's the committee assignment she gave me. So I'm going to look for some reasons to chalk up some per diems next year.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that any of you individually would do that, but
Learning lots of things.
I've seen that abuse in the system before.
Of course.
So going back to Councillor Shuck's idea in the county, I guess one of the problems is some councillors have more stuff than other councillors. We paid them all the same. Is that fair? Or
The onus is on the
that
chair
would make it
to
easier
try
for
and
you
assign.
because we'd all get the
appropriate.
same, whatever it is.
That's
Make it easier on you, but
Yeah.
that's
Go ahead.
I just think that yeah, I mean, I'm finding my committee assignments are pretty light. Half of them have been canceled on me, so
I've only got
Right.
I've only got one monthly one. The rest of them are
I'm not part of the problem.
Well, you're not
To be
even.
clear, no one's part of the
Yeah.
problem.
Is this the beard thing?
Yeah, it's back to beard.
It's the
I have to
pictures,
get
isn't
paid
it?
for your beard.
Yeah.
I can't get my head around it.
Any other comments, Councillor Johnson?
I just would prefer to have a set per diem, like the county. I really do. I'm thinking in my back of my mind, even this Zoom meeting I've got next week, I was thinking in my head, I really like to do that, but I feel guilty almost for making the claim. So I'd do it regardless of whether I got paid a per diem.
By the way, that's on Friday, not next week.
Right.
This
Okay,
Friday.
good. I just want to make sure.
This
Good thing you
Friday.
reminded me.
This Friday,
Yeah,
right?
you
Yeah,
bet.
because I'm on it too.
I know what you're talking about there. Josh has something, Councillor Court.
Oh, I was just, whatever we bring to you next time in options, we just want to make sure that we have some safeguards in place, particularly for budget, because we had the conversation, we had many of them last year. The concern was definitely, we want to stay within a certain boundary. We want to make sure that we're not taking too much and we're not being perceived as kind of taking more than we ought to. Though if it's just, kind of too loose, all of a sudden you can get to a point in the year where we'll say, hey, you're already over budget. And then what, So, we'll bring back a couple things just with some safeguards.
So
with
if we
budget
went
in
to a set monthly, whatever it is, if a councillor misses his meeting, I think he should be docked, personally. If he goes to all his meetings, he gets this much. If he
Well,
doesn't,
that's why we had this conversation, because we were talking
because of
about
that.
this.
that's
It's like, what's stopping me from not going? I'm still gonna get paid, right?
That's why I think we can work this.
That's what we were talking about.
We can work this into a monthly, whatever.
We'll
But
just go back
as
to
long
where
as
we
the
were, I
councillor's
guess,
got to be honest enough to say, well, I didn't make it that meeting, so I'm going to leave a little note for whoever, and that comes off of my per diem by monthly, whatever it is. To me, that would be the fairest way of doing it. Because then if you're not there, well, then you shouldn't be getting paid for it. Mayor.
Actually, Councillor Johnson, I would just say, I would love to look at the counties, just in writing, what there says. They did it after us, so I don't know. I've just heard from a couple of the councillors about it. So I would love to know what there says, how it's all allocated, what they consider is appropriate to get paid for extra. I'd love to see how that's written out.
Perhaps
Because
you could check with the school division too on that.
Oh, I wish we got school division.
well, I mean,
Right.
we did look into. I felt like Joshua, I felt like you had brought us what Raymond was, and like we had the area when it was brought to us, like the whole southern Alberta of where our goal was to be right in the middle, and I think that still is our goal, but I can't remember, the goal was when Jeff and I were looking at the committee assignments was that everyone would have two, but the trick is when you've got them canceling on you, you're right, like that could
I only
be
have one.
that could be $300, right? Meanwhile, I'm at 8.
Councilor Johnson.
Well, I just think that we're on the right track here as far as I'm concerned. And I know some organizations, they have a policy where they have a grace of 1 or 2 meetings per year that you can miss and not get docked. Just because you're going to run into that regardless, but you're still doing the work. It's not like you're neglecting your duties because you
You might just be gone that day or whatever. That's yourself.
So can we zoom into our meetings for 50% of the time and still get paid?
What's that?
Well, I'm not touching that one. There's a complex policy.
But if you zoom in though,
That's
like Jared zoomed in, he was there.
Yep.
You should get paid.
You're considered to be in attendance.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Because he wasn't gone for 5 months, so
Just
it's
months.
not the same.
Careful.
Anybody else?
Just on that, so because there was a lot of discussion on that, as you know. So yes, you are deemed to be in attendance when you attend electronically, but you can only attend electronically for so many successive meetings. And then you've got to have a butt in the seat.
Yeah.
So that was amended with this last council.
That's what we changed.
And virtual attendance has been a great tool in many cases. It's been super helpful. I mean, Councillor Kenley, you utilize it a lot. And
I've done it. We've all done it.
It's good.
In the other, do you have enough information to come back with something?
I feel like we just went back in time about a year, but yes, we certainly have.
Oh, we have, but we haven't.
I fought the change.
We had to see how this played out, and I just think it's better if we deal with it early.
Agreed.
I remember the discussion from the previous council. That's kind of what we indicated that this may be in for change. So, if there's nothing else on that, we'll leave that.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Right. What do we got next here? Electronic system, is that the one?
No, your
No.
gymnastics delegation.
Gymnastics delegation, oh boy. Feelings on this? We'll go right around the table.
My feelings is we're just haven't made a decision and we're status quo and just whatever we've been doing with them. I just think we continue for now. Until
So you don't give them the gym, you keep.
I just this is what they've been doing. Just to continue what we've been doing. I'm sorry they have to continue to keep taking down and up, but this is a facility that's multi-use, and that's just the way it is right now until we find something different. So that's my opinion.
Councillor Johnson?
I ditto that. I had some notes, but I think that reflects what I mean, and I think that we all would like to see them have a full-time place, but we need more time to research and find something out.
Madam Mayor, we can work our way around the table here.
So I disagree. I personally would like to see them have the opportunity to have, even if it was temporary, even if it was a trial base for a full season to see what they could do, to have a 12-month program that could be helping out the seniors, the kids, all the things. I've seen the list of all the other groups that use our facility, and the majority of them, there are areas for them to go. And so I don't feel like our building has to be the catch-all of everything. I hear what you're saying, and you're entitled to that. I just think, we work so hard for everybody to have a spot, our pickleballers to have an area, the football, the baseball. We just work so hard in this town, soccer, to give people the area and the greens or buildings that are needed, I just, and of course we have worked with gymnastics, and they do have a temporary, they have a permanent facility, but it's just not for a very long season. And so it's not like they can just roll up and chuck in a room, you know, it's a massive undertaking and it's destroying their equipment. So, you know, I personally would like to see us look at this and see how we could work with them. That's what I think.
Councillor So.
I agree 100% with the mayor. The one thing that I would have in my mind is in terms of these other groups, the mayor sort of made reference that there are places for them to go. They don't have to be here. The one thing that I love about the gymnastics club is that they have been around for 25 years and have contributed a lot to this community in terms of the kids that have gone through there and it's helped them. Even our administrator was in gymnastics when he was a kid. So look where he is.
A different Leaside school.
So it's done a lot for a lot of the kids that have gone through there. And, you know, we now have some of those kids coming back to be coaches and they contribute back. And then there's a simple, I hate to say this, there's a financial consideration where the gymnastics club consistently pays. When we look to other facilities, I think these can be one of those cornerstone organizations that can help us move forward with respect to grant funding to build that facility. I don't think that we're displacing very many people that can't go someplace else.
I can't really say one way or the other how I feel about it because I'm really not aware of what their other options are in the other facilities that they could go to other than here. None. So I thought it was left that they will continue here until a new facility can be found or looked for, right? And that's what we all want, isn't it?
Well, there's still the problem is they're putting up and taking down, putting up and taking
Right.
down. Yeah.
So can I?
Yeah.
Can I just hop on this, Councillor?
Okay.
So, Councillor Smith. So just to that, I would just say, so you're not wrong. So is there another building in town that they could go to? And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe that there is. And so how it's been left, because we had wanted to take this into our strategic planning session and talk about it, which we did. And so they're just requesting an answer, like, because they're just up in the air right now. They're like, so can we have it? Like, they understand that there's some big things that are up and coming. And of course, we're not canceling anything. But once we get through all of those, what about next year? Could next year they run a 12-month program? So their hope is that's what they're wanting an answer to. Mm-hmm. And so can they go somewhere else? No, there is no somewhere else. Is it a massive put up and take down? Yes, it is a massive get up or put up and take down. Does that answer?
Yeah, and that's what I thought. But so the answer then would be yes, they can have this. If they sign a contract for a year and something else is developed, though, they could still get out of the contract or whatever. So yeah.
Can I just segue into this too, Counselor? The problem with their program, or the problem that this facility does to their program, is that it inhibits them from having a full gymnastics program. So we cut their season short, and then we kind of cut it a little shorter. But, you know, it doesn't allow them to have a full gymnastics program that allows them to be competitive with other gymnastics programs throughout the province. I think that this club could go a long way to doing things as a club, but it could also do a lot of things towards helping the community. One of the conversations that the mayor and I had at some point in time was that they suggested that maybe they could have a program for seniors because they have all these mats. It's like, maybe we can teach them, you know, that they can come have a class, and if you fall, how's the way to get back up? How can you mitigate the damage done if you fall down at home or outside or whatever? So anyway, it's not just gymnastics. They want to expand their program to take in kids, to give moms an opportunity to have a break and turn their kids loose. There's a song like that.
Yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence. I think I would love to for them to have a permanent space, but I think I would like to, I guess maybe even sit down with the mayor and just and see what you know about all the other groups that come in here and what it's used for, and the meetings, and obviously the high school plays and stuff like that. And I guess really see what the other options are, and if there are legitimate options for other groups, then it could be something that, because it definitely would be good for the, like Councillor Selk was saying, to have some extra programs that they run for moms and little kids during the day and stuff like that all year, rather than just in the specific time frame. But also, we don't want to push aside other groups because this one group wants this community center for themselves. So,
Councillor.
Sure.
So Jeff, actually, you have the list, don't you? Didn't you say you had a list of?
We're presented with it at the council meeting.
And I
Yes.
just looked, if I might, I just looked at some things today, but like this building is booked by other groups from April 13th all the way through to June 14th right now in 2026.
Yeah.
So half of April, all of May, half of June.
Right.
And then there's
Other
some-
groups.
Yeah, other groups.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of smatterings of like the Rotary Grand Concert and community awareness. And, there's some other things like that. And then if we have any elections, sometimes the elections get held here too. So, but for 2026, that's the biggest block, is we're April 13th to June 14th. So it's a big chunk.
So on that, sorry, it's still me. So on that, Councillor Winder, if I can, so like the drama, the junior high, I think it's, or the high school,
Yeah.
or the junior high, whatever.
Both use it.
Both.
Yeah.
So the question would be, we still want them to run their programming. They do a fantastic job. Of course we do. It's important. So where else could they go? Well, they could go to the Carriage House Theater, right? They could rent it. Westwind School Division could rent the Carriage House Theater. Great. The town of Cardston, we rent it, is my understanding to them. Don't Westwind? Do we rent it?
Westwind. So there's another group that is rental. Westwind, this one, they're not paying.
Okay. So that's why they're loving us, because
They
they.
have in the past.
Okay, I thought they did. Anyway, but that's one of the things. So, where else could they go? They could go to the Carriage House Theater. Some of the other ones that were in there was, what else was in there? Let's say a Rotarian festival, a music festival of some sort. I think that was one of them. Well, where else could they go? Well, we got a lot of church buildings in Cardston, and they have them there with the pianos and all the things. Now, do I know for sure that the stakes? No, because that's not my wheelhouse. But is it possible that they could then go there? Well, the possibility is there. When it's here, do we charge them? Yeah, so we charge them when it's here. So if it was at one of the churches, what else am I missing? Does that answer your questions? Yeah. So are there other areas that they could go? Yes. Are there other areas gymnastics can go? No. All right.
Councillor Johnson, Councillor Sufton, I'll have a few closed remarks on it.
Okay.
Otherwise, we could be here all night.
Yeah, my hearts go out to them because they do run a good program, and I do want to see them succeed. I think in the past there has been quite a few more community events held here than in recent years, just because of availability. And some such things as blood drives and markets and bazaars and elections.
Was one.
And, volunteer appreciation nights. I don't know if they do that anymore or not, but those types of events were always held here. It was in this community civic center.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that we should give all that up for one organization where we can and have the intent of trying to find them a new place.
Okay. With all of those sorts of organizations, I would suggest that the Silk Purse is a highly underutilized facility. So blood drives can go there. and all those other incidental things can go there. There's no reason why they can't.
It's easy for us to say.
Maybe they don't
Thank
want
you.
to go there, but
I'll
like-
jump in on that particular one. It's easy
What
to
did you
say that the junior high and high school can go to the theater downtown, but we need to make sure that's available for them before we start giving this away. Like this last week, and I kind of laughed. Somebody was asking, "Who did you get a hold of for the Cardston Community Theater?"
Yeah, saw that.
He says, "They're no longer in existence or anything." I took gymnastics in university. Don't even try to imagine that 40 years ago. I actually could do that kind of stuff. That's
Wait,
about 50 or 60 pounds ago. But
Saw you do
anyhow.
it back.
And I liked it. I enjoyed
Yeah.
the gymnastics and everything else goes with it. You let the cat out of the bag. I was going to say I want to be careful in generalities, but maybe we need to look at other buildings that we as a town could get a hold of. And maybe they're willing to sell us a building that we find useful. And that building you mentioned would be right up the alley on that one. I mean, if we had something like that, I could see how we could maybe work a little more with the gymnastics. We're about 2 years out, I think, for a high school theater, if I've been hearing correctly. So this problem eventually will kind of go away, but there's an even bigger problem. If they had it full time, it's still not big enough for them. They can't do everything you want to do in this gym. I know it's a good option for them right now. So we've got a week or two before we need to really deal with this. It's a CCW, so we're not really going to vote
Right.
on anything.
Right.
But I would like to see us looking a little. I don't know who's would be doing that. Administration. I'd like to see them again having a talk with the guys on Main Street. Talk about the silk purse. Just to make sure that these other places have other groups have a place to go. I mean, we hold our yearly whatever it is, or the town, whatever they call that, in November. We hold it here. If we
Community
take this gym away from them, where are they going to go?
Tanner Center.
Possibly. That's things that we need to discuss, though, Mayor.
So,
We need to make sure these things are in place before we give this gym away.
so would it be fair if I directed administration to look into that?
I
Would you
think
be
that'd
okay?
be awesome.
I would love this.
yeah, technically recommend the council to. direct
Clearly.
administration.
So can I recommend that you look into, that administration look into, if in fact gymnastics was given a 12-month use of our facility, who would be displaced and where those groups, thank you, where those groups would then go. Would there be, because we want to make sure, all of us agree with that we need to make sure that if they were displaced, where that they would go. That's my motion.
That's not a motion, that's a
That's-
recommendation.
yep, that's my
You
recommendation.
can support that recommendation.
Well, you still call it.
Yeah.
Call question. Support
All in favor?
all of, I'm getting
No.
there.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure they got some other place to go to before we yank the rug out on them here.
Absolutely.
If I could make one more comment,
Sure.
it's great to find a place for those people who are displaced right now, but I'm more concerned about all the things that we could host if they did have a place.
Well, that's why we need to get working on this fairly quickly. I agree with you, Councillor Johnson. But I think administration next couple weeks could probably have a lot of conversations with the groups we just talked about and see what they come back with.
So thank you for all that feedback. You know, there's a couple of things too about this building has much higher capacity than almost any other in the community, right? So that's why it's like community awareness, for example, and even theater productions. It has high capacity. So we have to look at capacity constraints too. The other thing to keep in mind, and I'm really glad that gymnastics is at what would I call it, the evolution they are right now. So in the ebb and flow of things, there certainly seem to be gaining steam and growing, and that's great. And it's just the reality of these groups that they ebb and flow. Trends change, priorities change, and so we always want to be cautious too about saying, well, we're going to make this exclusively yours, and in 2 years they have half the kids and half the revenue, and then, and we've seen that in my time at the town. We've seen gymnastics do that. We've seen gymnastics worried about being able to keep going, and I hope that's never the case again, by the way. So it's just all that stuff we've got to weigh out, right, and to see how that plays out.
Well, you could look at the community theater that was so big all
That's right.
Now they're
That's
gone.
right.
And they've got all their stuff down in the basement, so.
That's because of people.
So
Well,
then there's
if-
always, it's always complex, Counselor. There's always a lot of reasons, right? For sure.
So if administration could somehow find the time to talk to
Yep.
the various groups we just talked about, and see about getting a hold of a building if they wanna let it go, or how much they, all that kind of stuff, so.
Do you wanna have a short dinner break a little early?
Sure, I'll take a motion,
Take a break.
sure, for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it takes. All in favor? Hey,
Let's
thank
do
you,
the
Joe,
boring
for
electrical
shouts out
system
again.
orientation.
Take a motion. Yeah.
I'll motion to reconvene.
He gets to move.
Motion to reconvene. All in favor? Any opposed?
Heart wasn't beating on that one. It was before though.
Didn't feel it.
Okay, you're gonna give us an overview of the electrical system?
Yeah,
We didn't get enough last time, so we're gonna need some more this time.
Yeah, so this is just kind of that continued orientation council, and I won't read everything I uploaded verbatim, but I did want to touch on a bit of it. You guys are an incredibly unique council because you're the board of directors of a distribution system. I put a map on during the meal there, I put a map. It's not a perfect map, it was the best I could find. I was trying to find all the franchise areas in Alberta, and I'll refer to that in just a minute, but I just wanted to break down the unique situation we have in operating a distribution system and how you fit in as a counselor. Now, previous to this, we talked about your code of conduct very quickly because we had to do that early on, that you can't preference a retailer as a counselor. That's the long and short of that. So if someone says, oh, who does the town think the best retailer is? I do not have an opinion on that. But I just want to talk about how distribution, which is what we are. So we run a distribution system. We don't sell power, with one little exception about the regulated rate. There's an exception to every rule here, by the way. We don't generate power except for our micro generation that we have. Again, a little bit of an exception to the rule. And we're not transmission. So transmission is higher voltage. Ours is 25,000 volt. So we are distribution. So in Alberta, there's 4 segments: generation, transmission, distribution, and retail. I think I'd mentioned before, I think there's over 30 approved retailers in Cardston alone. So we do have the responsibility to approve new retailers. And with that, we have to get credentials from them. They have to put up security. There's a bunch of regulatory things. We walk through them. But the generation and retail environment in Alberta are competitive. They are non-regulated. So you can be an entrant to the market. If you and some friends want to get together and create a retail company or create generation, you can do that. It's market-based. You do not have the ability to create a distribution company because you don't have a way to gain franchise area. So franchise area is determined. You can't come and peel off a section of Fortis and call it your own. It's not how that works. So that's essentially how that delineates. And so, let me just see here. So in Alberta, and what's not on this map is this is all the distributors, but transmission essentially is just AltaLink. Some of you may have heard of them. So AltaLink owns and operates the major voltage infrastructure that everyone else feeds off of. If you go through Standoff, for example, there's a big A-frame metal pole line that runs east and west, AltaLink. As you head up Highway 2, sometimes you cross those huge A-frame, that's AltaLink.
So are they a private company then, or is?
Yep, they are. Yep. And actually, Councillor Court, those relationships are unbelievably complex in how they intertwine with the province too. But yes, the short answer would be yes, they are.
So they're not the old Calgary Power then?
No. What you'll find is that, and now that you brought up Calgary, Calgary's a great example of how they actually span a number of these areas. So NMAX is a wholly owned corporation of the city of Calgary. NMAX is the electrical arm of the city of Calgary. EPCOR is the electrical arm of the city of Edmonton. And they create different corporations that are all municipally owned. Some do retail, some do distribution, some do generation, and they create them as separate municipally owned corporations. But they can't all be done under the same umbrella because some are regulated and some aren't regulated, so they split them out. So in Alberta, the major distribution players are ATCO Electric and Fortis. And we're mostly familiar with Fortis because we're an island in Fortis territory. Everywhere around us in every direction for hundreds of kilometers is Fortis. I guess I shouldn't say hundreds of kilometers south, you hit the border, but you know what I mean. In every other direction, it's hundreds of kilometers. And the map indicates that. We are also unique that there's only 2 towns on this map. It's us and Ponoka. So we're the only 2 towns left in the province that own our distribution system, but the cities of Red Deer, Edmonton, Calgary, Medicine Hat's not on here because they're super unique from a regulatory point of view, which I won't delve into now because I don't understand it well enough to delve into it. So we're certainly unique in what we do. And then you have these different governance groups within the province that oversee these types of things. So the ISO, the Alberta Electric Systems Operator, they plan and operate the grid. AUC regulates rates and infrastructure. So again, even though some of these are regulated and they're still very intertwined with the regulators. I'll just skip over here. The municipalities, us and the cities, are a little bit different too, because all these other people you see on this map, the Alberta Utilities Commission has to approve their rates. So whenever they want to change a rate, they have to submit that to the AUC, they have to defend it at the AUC, and then they have to get approval. As a municipal utility, you are considered the board of directors for the company, and you can set the rates. We inform the AUC, but we are not required to get approval from the AUC. Now, if you set outlandish rates and begin to get a number of complaints about that to the darn it. Anyway, there's the Utility Consumer Advocate and other groups, then the AUC may look to intervene. But we've never seen that, and that's partially because our philosophy, at least in my time here, is we've tried to be relative rate followers to the major distributors. So if you just went across the street, what would you be paying for distribution versus if you were just in town? And we've been able to be at a bit of a discount to Fortis without sacrificing tremendous amounts of margin. So kind of tried to stay just a few percent below them. One thing that I'll be bringing to you soon, I have my final meeting on this on Thursday, and I'll get into this a little more, but we are reviewing all of our rate structures, and we do have one class of rates that are structured very differently than Fortis's, and we're trying to get that more in line, and that's going to cause some pain points for a few customers. I'll work with you on that in a couple more meetings. We're just trying to tidy that up on Thursday. So that's kind of where we operate. So what happens where we're the distributor? Again, we're not taking revenue from retail. So you move into your home, you choose a retailer, pick any one of the 32. You negotiate with them to supply you with power at a rate. They know our rate because it's on our website, and they look at our rates and they collect that from you for the distribution portion, and they give it to the town. That's effectively how that works. And then what we do is we pay a wholesale distribution fee to Fortis. So Fortis carries all that power. We're not paying for the power, we're paying for the cost to transfer the power, to move the power. We have a wholesale rate from Fortis. We then set our rates based on how much we have to collect, plus the margin to operate the system. And that's effectively how we set the rates. Even though you have discretion over the rates, we have to be able to justify the methodology for the rate. It can't be arbitrary. So we have to be able to say this is capital investment, this is operational cost, this is all that stuff. And so we have to make sure that it's still very justifiable based on most of the same rationale of the other distributors that we work with.
So if we were like other towns and we're kind of in control of things like would our rates be going? Like, are we doing this because we keep them low? Like if we were like the other towns and some outside was controlling rates?
So my opinion, the quick answer to that for me is no. I don't think the motivation of the town of Cardston owning the distribution is to keep rates much lower than outside the franchise. What it does is it generates roughly, if I were to average, say, the last 10 years, it generates about $400,000 a year that we can offset taxation. So instead of, say, Fortis having that profit, the town retains that profit, and it funds. So the system right now, in oversimplified terms, it covers its capital investments of about $250,000 a year is what we reinvest into the system in capital. It covers all of its operations, the regulatory, the consultants, all that stuff, and then we have around $400,000 a year that we just bring into the general budget as revenue.
I was just going to add, I think a couple times in our last term, some of that revenue has helped us not have to bump up taxes because we've just offsetted our deficit by some of that extra revenue from our electrical system. So it's just like an income for the town.
Yeah, I was just trying to wrap my head around that why we do.
I'm with you. I'm still with you on it. So it's hard to.
Yeah. It's a very complex piece. One of the things that the last council commissioned, and it finished in spring of 2025, because this question about why we own this thing comes up a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
And there are willing buyers. I could have it done by morning if you want it done. There's certainly willing buyers for a good price. So the last council, we had what I will call an unsolicited, unqualified offer from another company, meaning that they hadn't done all their due diligence, but they were saying, look, hypothetically, if you were interested, we'd probably be around this number. So the last council hired KPMG, so the accounting firm. KPMG is doing a ton of these types of things in Ontario, because Ontario's landscape has changed where most of their small operators are selling to the big operator. And so we hired them to do an evaluation of our system, to look at our historical financials and then look at the cash flow that we generate from it and look at that value over time. And their recommendation, as you previous councillors will remember, was to retain the system. Yeah. It's not an overwhelming argument, but it is a good argument, right? So if we were, pick McGrath, we'll just pick the next one down the road. So McGrath doesn't own their system. Fortis owns all that infrastructure, but Fortis pays them a franchise fee to have a monopoly in their town. And so there is an argument to say, well, you can rid yourself of all this headache and just charge a franchise fee. The challenge with that is the franchise fee is just collected on the backs of your ratepayers. It's just a different way to tax. It's just a way to say it doesn't make you as councillors look bad because it's coming on a Fortis bill, right? So the revenue is still being pulled out of the community. Well, pulled from the community, that's the better way to put it. So what our other communities operate on is franchise fees. And we charge ATCO a franchise fee, for example. We don't have an electrical one because we own it. But we charge ATCO a couple $100,000 a year to maintain a monopoly in the community. And I know that comes off the tongue a little weird. It sounds very mafia-like. It's not that at all. It's that these companies have tremendous utility or infrastructure investment in your community, and they need a chance to be able to recover that. That's the rationale behind franchise fees. So
just to give a little bit of a historical background on this, when I was first on council, we had an offer of $11 million for the system, and everybody was selling out about that time. And we did a survey, and the people in town didn't want to sell it. So we stuck with it. So Raymond and McGrath, they all sold off about that time. Just us and Pinoca held on to ours. They're all sold.
In my time, when we first started, there was a group called the AMPS communities, Alberta Municipal Power Systems communities. And it was Pinoca, Cardston, Fort McLeod, Crow's Nest Pass.
Picture in there.
Nope, but I'm missing one other, dang it. But since then, they have sold to Fortis. And I get it. I understand why. It's such a non-core competency of municipal management. It's an oddball. Yeah. Frankly, it's a pain in the butt most times. It's so regulatory heavy. It's so strange compared to anything else you deal with. However, we've been lucky. We've had good consultants along the way. I don't try and do all this myself. So we had a gentleman named Kevin Phillips for years. Former NMAX guy. He really helped us with all the regulatory piece. Since you've been in council, you've approved the NMAX Power Agreement. So NMAX Power helps us on a ton of the regulatory side. And then last year we entered into a contract with Equus, who is they're a very unique distribution system operator. I won't even get into that right now, but they're doing like our rate analysis right now. That's what Equus is doing for us. And we've also partnered with them for their engineering standards, because we have to have engineering standards in the community. So person comes into town, I want to build a 20 unit subdivision. What's the standards I have to build my electrical to? Here they are. And so we are licensing Equus standards. And so that's the standard you have to build to. So I can't have electrical engineers on staff. I could. We could have electrical engineers on staff. We could have a lot more people in that department, but that $400,000 benefit a year just starts to get eaten away. And then we really do have to have a conversation about retention of that system. If it's not benefiting the ratepayer any, and we just have all this risk of owning the system, that doesn't make a ton of sense, right? So we've tried to operate pretty lean to maintain that benefit.
What would cause that chunk of change to kind of disappear over time?
The 400,000?
Yeah.
Oh man,
I know it could be a lot of things,
yeah,
but
that's a death by 1,000 cuts type of question. But
replacing poles?
A couple of things, massive capital requirements, and I'll tell you what's most realistic here is there's discussion right now at the provincial level to require AMI meters across the province so that everyone's meters are being read on like minute to minute increments. So not that you take your consumption on January 1 and your consumption on January 31. No, they want real-time data on every house in the whole province. Well, what that means for distributors is that would be $700-800 times 1,500 meters required, mandatory. And so, well, there you go. There's that money that year.
That year.
Right, that year for sure. There's always a risk.
I guess I'm just wondering, is there ever I mean, there's always a chance, but that just it like dwindles until there's like,
for sure.
you know,
Yeah, absolutely. We see it in
That's
one of the things we're involved in. We own a portion of the. Oh dang it! I just forgot the term. There's an inventory of abandoned infrastructure within the distribution system all across the province that no one's owned. And the province, when they went from being or provincially owned on all that, and when it went to private, they just kind of pooled it and said, all you distributors own a portion of that. And some years it pays us a little bit of a benefit, and some years we have to pay into it. There's little liabilities like that creep around. It would be even in a year that you have catastrophic equipment failure, you have a massive ice storm, there's risk. There's no question about it. Yeah. For you on the previous council, you probably know my position on ownership of the electrical system is that there's some very unique opportunities for a community our size to explore. Yes. And I would be up in the night if we sold this before we explored all that. I'd always wonder what might have been. Right? It would drive me crazy.
We've had a number of groups that have approached us because we own our own power system. So
yeah. Yeah, and those of you who met the folks from Clean Communities who own the solar farm that's up there next to ours now, there's some really neat things happening there we'd have to talk about in closed session, and I want to share that with you soon.
Yeah.
But that continues to evolve and show us some kind of interesting things that can happen, and we just need to see how all that plays out.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
And I know you, Councillor Kinley, of everyone, you're very much in support of that. You knew those details before, and we're very excited about that.
Councillor Selk.
So, Jeff, our solar system, how much does it contribute to the actual amount of electricity?
Thank you. I was going to ask that question. No, I don't need to. So.
What do you mean by amount of electricity? Let me
okay,
make sure I'm clear on that.
We buy electricity from Fortis, correct?
Yeah. And well, we have a retailer. We're actually, so for the town, for the corporation, let's say, we buy our electricity for these lights right now from a retailer. And that's NMAX for us right now. That happens to be who has our contract. Doesn't have to be, but that's who it is. But if you're referring to, we pay for wholesale delivery of power into the community. So the less we need to bring into the community, hypothetically starts to generate a reduced cost for the town.
Right.
So to your question about the town-owned solar farm, that is what's called a microgen project. So some are called distributed generation, which is what the Clean Communities is, and then there's some that are microgeneration, which is what ours is. Microgeneration is designed to offset the load of the customer. So what that system is designed to do is to offset the aggregate load of all corporate-owned buildings in a year. Mm-hmm. We have watched, Councillor, the pendulum, let's call it the benefit pendulum of our system, swing quite wildly the last couple of years. So I think that thing is 8 years old now. Jill, does that seem about right? 7 or 8 years old, that solar farm?
No, it's less than that because it was my first term on council.
Okay.
It was already
so it'd be
running
about
on
6.
That,
Okay.
Be 6.
Yeah.
so probably.
So right in there somewhere?
Yep.
Okay. We've seen years where we've covered all of the corporation's electricity costs, plus had $120,000 with excess that was generated to put in our jeans, which was awesome. We saw years like last year where we barely covered what our costs were because the price of electricity was so dang low. Mm-hmm. The pool price was so low. And one day we can talk about how pool pricing is done, which is quite interesting. and it's got quite a bit of risk priced into it, but that's another story. Mm-hmm. So when it's on the average, I would say, Counselor, it covers all of the electricity costs that we incur as a corporation. And depending on when we can export and that excess, there can be some gravy for us at the end of the year.
So you said that we purchase bulk electricity, but not from Fortis.
Well, we're the town has a contract to purchase our electricity from NMAX, but we pay a wholesale distribution rate from Fortis
Okay.
To bring the
to
electricity.
bring it in.
To bring
Yeah.
it in.
Right.
How
So
much
one
do
of the things behind Clean Communities and the town and other things we're looking at is how can we get that number down? So we have the unique opportunity as a town to not just try and make revenue on generation. We can have substantial savings from reducing distribution. That can be a very good thing for us. So with the Clean Communities project up there, it is sized because Fortis won't allow me to export, and if we ever want to go in closed session and I can vent about that for a long time, I'm happy to do it. But and in fact, I just signed an updated agreement with Fortis today that we need to talk about soon, but that's another story. So we can't export any electricity out of the town right now. There's no capacity on the line between Spring Coulee and Cardston, which is okay because we burn it up inside the franchise and we don't bring power in.
Mhm.
And that helps with distribution costs. But two things whittle away at this, and this touches on your question too, Councillor, is Fortis over the years has continued to get approval to change their rate structure where their rate structure is demand-based and not consumption-based. So what, and this is a crude example, but what Fortis is saying is if you have a line this big, then that's what you're going to pay for whether you use it or not. We don't care if you only use that much electricity because we paid to bring you a line that big. But we don't care if you reduced electricity because it's demand based. It's not consumption based. And we're what's called a rate 63 with Fortis, which isn't ideal. We see quite a bit of savings on the transmission side, so we pay a combination of distribution and transmission. Transmission does reward us for lower consumption, better than distribution. Did I say that right?
Mhm.
Transmission rewards us better than distribution does. One of the clauses in the contract that I'll carefully say publicly, but one of the things we negotiated today with Fortis was in 2026, we will commence a unique rate structure just for the town of Cardston, with the goal of reducing reliance on the outside grid and therefore the capital that Fortis has to spend. So that's the goal, and they agreed to that. Now it's one concession of theirs, and I feel like 100 we made. And again, we'll talk about that in closed session sometime. But the goal there was, I said to them, your distribution rate is punitive to us because we're investing all this capital to reduce our reliance on the grid, but it's demand based, and we need a consumption component to that. That as we bring down what we bring in, we need to be financially rewarded for that. And they've agreed to commence that in 2026. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, I'll keep you posted. So, man, where were we? We were talking about all kinds of
I don't know,
stuff.
I feel like my question derailed us. I'm sorry about that.
Well, trying to go back to where we were. but-
5 minutes ago.
yeah. So I guess, the key takeaways here is we are unique in operating a distribution system, and there's pros and cons to it. And depending on the day you catch me, I have more pros or cons, just depending on what we're dealing with that day. And we've been really lucky. I'm looking forward to bringing you the new rate structures that Equus has put together for us. I think they're much more consistent with the Fortis rate and allows us to really monitor our competitiveness. Councillor Winder, I think you brought this up earlier too. You as the board of directors for this do have the opportunity to establish rates that would be a much bigger discount and much more appealing than Fortis just outside. So let's say, for example, I'll just throw, you have a big refrigeration plant that wants to locate there. Massive electrical consumer. Massive. You have the opportunity to offer them a rate that nobody else can. And so that has some advantages. We haven't seen that play out just yet, but we are, for example, we just last term, we created a new rate for EV charging stations, for example. So CSL put in new EV charging stations. It hammered their distribution rates. It was so financially punitive. And we were able to come to council and say, hey, look, one way we can help these businesses, we have the ATCO charge and we have the CSL charges, is we can reconfigure a rate just for those properties that is not so punitive. And we were able to do that. And I can tell you, I've talked to Skylar many times and they're very appreciative of that. So you do have flexibility that your other people don't, your competitors don't, right around us. And, you know, depending on how things play out with different business and industry, we may be having some of those conversations. It'd be great if we could. So again, you're in the distributed sector. You are regulated. We can only operate. Again, there's exceptions to everything. We can only operate in our town limits, which is our franchise, except we run a line to our water plant and we run a line to the Legion. And I don't know, historically, that just made the most sense for someone to extend there. Up until last term, we supplied about 25 houses in Moses Lake. Some of you may remember, we actually sold that to Fortis the last term. We sold them just that little chunk. And so, but we do have a couple of lines that go out in the county because that made the most sense of who had close infrastructure back in the day. So it's not a perfect system. It's not a perfect franchise. But again, the only way, municipalities have one other very fascinating way to change your amount of franchise area. If we annex land in the county, we can then take those polls from Fortis. We get to take those customers from Fortis because that would annex into our franchise area. So annexation is a way that we can gain more territory over time. But again, we own our distribution system. We set our own rates through you, which you're going to be talking about, if not the next meeting, the one after. You approve your own capital plans. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Those big players, they actually have to have their capital spending approved by the Utilities Commission. Because if they get too aggressive, they put all that on the rate base and distribution rates spike. So AUC says, hold on, you got to be pretty pragmatic here. You can't fluctuate your capital spend in your franchise dramatically, but you guys have the oversight of capital spend. Now it was, Councillor Cord, you might have been here, it was 15 years ago when the council of the day, the council of the day had an offer from someone to purchase a system, declined that offer, but it was then when they started spending more consistently on capital. It was then we went from 4,160 volts to 25,000 volts, consistent with Fortis, and we had to decommission the old Powerhouse Hill transformer, the big one, because when we were looking around the country to find a replacement, those things just didn't exist anymore. I will give councils historically all through the history of our community a real compliment in that, and I want to be careful how I say this because I don't mean to begrudge our friends and neighbors in Fort Macleod and Crowsnest Pass, but what had happened is the capital spend and the upgrade on those systems in those communities had been lacking. And I don't think they would argue that if they were here today. And so they were left with a system that needed, frankly, millions of dollars in investment. Whereas the town system never got to that point. It was always fairly well maintained, and then in the last 15 years, even more so. Everything's upgraded to 25 kV. All the poles are of a certain vintage. Almost all the transformers have been replaced or of an acceptable vintage. So we weren't in the same position as, say, Fort Macleod when the buyers came knocking the second time, Council, where they were saying, well, wait a minute, we turn this down and then we got to go spend $3 million, or we don't spend $3 million and we take this, and that number is a little more compelling, where we were saying we don't have to spend $3 million. We were fine.
What we found with these guys is 15 years ago, they show up with about $11 million. And about 5 years later, they show up with about $3 million.
4.5,
whatever it was, and we just said, no, we're not interested.
Yeah.
So far, they haven't offered us enough to jump at it yet. So we'll see if they keep coming up with their offers, how much
you'll get one in your term. Let me assure you of that. You will.
Then you have to kind of look at it because you can bank that and bring in $400,000 a year in interest. So is it worth it?
Yeah.
So that's
There's
stuff
a
we'll-
number where it makes sense.
There's stuff that we'll have to look
For
at.
sure.
when we get to that point. Yeah.
You have to remember too, let's say Fortis, for example, if they wanted to run this system, there's no doubt they can run this system cheaper than we can run the system, because in our system I have 2 linemen for this system.
Mhm.
All of our equipment is for this system, all of our shops, all of everything. Whereas for them, they can have a guy come in 3 days a week. They have a truck they use 50% of the time somewhere else and a little bit of the time here. You know, it's an economy of scale question. And of course they could do it with a higher margin. Of course they can. But I'll make a point of in the next couple of meetings to, in a closed session, I may even see if Ryan, and the 3 of you have met Ryan, I'll maybe see if Ryan can virtually attend and talk about, there's some really cool things coming that we're going to be partnering with them in our system. And these are the kind of things, and I know you previous counselors we talked about, those are the kind of things I want to exhaust before we just decide that it's not worth the risk, because there's some really cool opportunities here, and our ability to now renegotiate from a rate 63 to a custom rate for the town of Cardston holds some really interesting promise too.
Oh,
So
I'm sure they are loving that too. If they ever get wind of that, I'm sure they would know.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. They've been, you're talking about Ryan.
Yeah.
They've been encouraging me to get to the table on the rate, right? They think it's a punitive rate for what they're doing too.
Yeah.
Just for context, we would pay Fortis about $1 million a year for that wholesale distribution charge, right? So what if you're 20% better off in a year? That's real dollars. That's not peanuts. That's a couple $100,000 right now. And so Councillor Selk, I know, remembers this very well. We took a dog and pony show to the province trying to get the same regulatory scheme as Medicine Hat, because Medicine Hat actually has a very different, they're still connected to the grid, they're still connected to Fortis, but they don't pay unless they have to bring it in from the outside, and they only pay for what they bring in. And we were trying to get that same regulatory scheme, and the province wouldn't even entertain us. They wouldn't even hear of it. And we need to go back at that again. But part of that will be our negotiation with Fortis to see how much that will help. So yeah, lots of interesting things there, but I trying to just a bit at a time keep you oriented on the electrical system.
Okay, one more thing.
Sorry, Jeff. During that time, didn't ATCO come to us like NMAX did with our solar panels and say, we'll build you a natural gas generating plant. We'll do the same thing that NMAX is doing for you. And once it's paid off, it's yours. And
So
good
they
luck.
had a division at the time that was very interested in looking to see how we could play in that space. And we never got, yes, conceptually, to your question, we never got down the road far enough to really put anything on paper. But they're still, those groups are still there. They're interested in what you would call performance contracting. They'll come in, put the capital up, take your savings for a number of years, and then they walk away and you still have the asset. All that stuff still needs to be on the table.
Right.
You know, we still need to examine that. The next couple of things that are happening in the next calendar year will give us an indication of how much we can manipulate our rates. We got some really cool things as of last week that are coming. I'll bring that to a future meeting.
Okay.
So yeah, stay tuned on that. But that's again just another overview of your electrical system.
Okay, now hope the caffeine's kicked in for you. Well, talk to a little more exciting stuff now. The golf budget to actual, and you have a bit of an update on the golf clubhouse.
So I just wanted to show you, we talked about this before. I did a quick budget to actual and then just a very, I'll call it a super simple profit and loss. Now there's a huge number in here that matters terribly on both of these documents. And so on the budget to actual document, you will show that it shows that we were almost 300,000 under budget, 296,657. However, that's because we have not booked that transfer to reserves. And for what it's worth, I don't recommend that we do book all of that transfer to reserves, which the profit and loss statement will illustrate here in a minute. What that is, councillors, is that when we looked at our reserve amounts that we had for the golf course, the previous council said, look, if we have a banner year, we want to cover off our capital spending and put that back. We want to make our capital spend and then put that back in for next year, future years, clubhouse, all that. It's an aspirational number, but it is not a mandatory expense. And so what we found at the end of the year, so I don't want you to think we came in $300,000 under budget, because you pull that 243 out and we're $53,000 under budget. I want to also caution you, I don't put hardly any weight in budgets to actuals. And the reason is I can manipulate them 10 different ways. If you just want me to not do a whole bunch of stuff all year, I can come in under budget. If you want me to cut a bunch of programming and not spend on upkeep and send all the staff home, if your goal is for me to come in under budget, no problem. I can overstate revenues terribly. We're going to take in 1.4 million next year. Watch me come in like it. I just don't like them that much, but we need them. We need budgets, but we all have to have some mutual trust that we're carrying out all the service you want us to perform. So suggesting that we've done that, we still did come in under budget. You can see which categories we came in under. A part of it was we had budgeted partial principal and interest on the clubhouse last year, which that was 25,000 of it. That's half of it right there, and we didn't have to spend it. So that was a big piece of it. We saw some accounts that were over. Those were counteracted by accounts that were under. Things even like there was a big under in golf pro shop merchandise. There was a decision made when we got into the year just to bring in consumables, not to bring in sets of clubs, not to bring in expensive jackets. There was an intention there to step back from that, because again, we didn't really know what the new clubhouse plan was going to be over the year. Merchandise is always a very difficult one too, because I could have spent all that and more, but if the margin was zero or negative, well, that's a bad move, right? You have to balance all that stuff inside this document too, that it doesn't make any sense to sell stuff at a loss. Or what was happening a lot with the apparel was we buy a whole bunch of it, it becomes dead stock, we end up giving it away as tournament prizes and stuff, and so our margin is negative. It's not zero, it's terribly negative because we gave it away. We lost everything that we had to pay for it. So we were really cautious about that last year. So if you go to the other one, which is it's got all the years from 2018 to 2025. I consider this just, again, it's my simple spreadsheet. So this again shows this idea of, hold on, I got stuff popping up on me here. I can't see my page.
Just go ahead with this number.
I don't see that there.
It's
okay.
Yeah.
1 second. I just got to open my right screen to it here. Okay.
Only 8 years.
So that shows operationally a $175,000 loss, but it has a $241,000 transfer to reserves. So if you pull that transfer to reserves out, we had a $68,700 operational surplus, which I'm very happy about, because again, we didn't intentionally pull the rug out on any programming. We operated as per normal and we still had a small excess. So if council wishes to transfer to reserves, I recommend we transfer $68,732,000 and retain that within the golf system. I think that's the right number. So those are things we'll talk about as we get closer to finishing the audit here. But what I would say is, so in 2025, we did have about a $69,000 to the good. We spent $217,000 on capital. We did fund that with $200,000 of reserves. And so just something to keep in mind where we can fund that, but it does deplete the amount of cash we have on hand for other things. And that's why we were trying to say, well, essentially everything we can put back, we want to do that. The year didn't offer us that. So there's a couple of things, and I think, I know Councillor Johnson, you brought this up in previous meetings about the golf course is such an interesting little monster. If there's something that's even a little more frustrating than operating an electrical distribution system, it's a golf course. I just want to throw that out there.
It's fun, Jeff.
And part of it is you guys turn over every 4 years. And so kind of a long-term vision for a course. Are we an affordable, low-cost municipal course? Are we enhanced services, a little bit higher end? And do our rates reflect that? Where are we trying to land? And we land in a very different place than a private operator would try and land. Of course we do. You might have a private operator that says, I can't afford to put capital into this and lose this kind of money every year. So they have to change things up. So You know, one thing we are looking at this year with our team, I'm starting to have meetings, actually starting on Thursday, about opening dates and staffing, getting level up, starting staffing going. Our seasonal advertisements are out right now. For you new counselors, you're going to start getting hit up that we didn't open at the right time. So no matter what we choose, it's wrong. Let me just be clear about that. But I'll guarantee you we won't open up early enough, or we opened up too soon, or something. So opening day, and Counselor Kenley and I talk about this a lot. It's always controversial because we do get breaks in the weather where we're going to have a beautiful week of 15 degrees and then we got bad weather coming. So I have to mobilize staff. I got to start people working. I got to mobilize 2 weeks before to get things ready. And then we're closed again for 2 weeks. And I got everyone sitting home mad that they started and now they're not coming in. And like, we're trying to balance all that. Last year we stayed open really late. And we did it as a bit of an experiment. We did limited staff. We stayed open late. It was all member play. There was no new revenue. We were bringing in a couple $100 a day and yet staffing for 10 hours. Those are discussions, you know, that we just need to talk about a little bit as we get into the season. And we've convened the new golf board. So we got them going and we've got some rate things we're working on right now. And so that's all great. They've had a good meeting and we'll have probably another one not too far off. Graydon and Sandy have been working stuff on their end. They've already come in to see me. Josh on the grounds is coming in to see me Thursday. So, you know, from a management team, we're starting. We're getting things rolling here a little bit. But the public expectation is so extreme on both ends of the thing. We try and balance that out as best we can. We try and balance out level of service. Again, Councillor Johnson, I mentioned earlier, you mentioned some things that need to be elevated in terms of grounds and how that works. And that's a tough balance sometimes. I don't disagree with you, by the way, as far as providing the amenity in a better condition. No argument there. We have some early season projects we're hoping to do with a lot of volunteers to fix the greens on 16, do a few things with some volunteer labor. We have to time that just right. So I just wanted to give you an idea. I'm as a CAO of a municipality running a course, I can sleep pretty well with a small being to the good and providing an amenity in the community. Mm-hmm. And that makes me fairly happy, actually. I'm okay with that. You know, there's just a lot of risk operating that too.
Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've seen the numbers from 2018, so
Sure.
It was interesting to me. And town operates under public accounting rules, right? And so it's a little bit different than public or private accounting and corporate accounting. But if you were to look at this from a corporate standpoint, and with the equipment being depreciated on a yearly basis like they normally do, over that 8 years, my estimation is you're making a pretty good profit if you were to amortize it the way a corporation would amortize.
If you were getting the tax benefit of the amortization,
right.
Sure, I would agree there.
So quite a bit of profit there that you're not showing as a result of that. So I was pleasantly surprised that was actually
okay. I mean, it's amazing, by the way, if you look back to 2018-19 and then COVID was 2020. Yeah. And I would dare say the only reason we started down the road of a clubhouse was because we made really good money in COVID years. Yeah. We were hardly staffed, first of all. And, you know, in 2020, operationally, we made $320,000. That's the only reason there's $10 of reserves in the clubhouse golf course account. It's because we had 2 consecutive years of COVID, that it was one of the activities that you could sporadically do. I'll put it that way, because we would staff up and then it would close down. And then any given Tuesday at noon, you'd get the update and it could be open again. So we'd scramble and get somebody up there to open it up. And so now I only have one person at the whole course and I got a full course. I mean, it was quite profitable, but it really illustrated that question of what's the level of service we want to provide. Now, I think you will see, at least, well, I don't want to tell you I think you will see, my direction to staff up there is our clubhouse staffing will be reduced this year. That's going down. And I'm not pointing fingers. It was just a different vision of previous management to take your clubs, put them on the cart, wash your clubs, that whole kind of country club level. And we're going to be stepping away from trying to do that. So we're going to simplify staffing in the clubhouse and probably maintain grounds as best we can about where it's been. I think it's about a quarter, 200 grand, somewhere around there. I'm hoping to shave. Well, what we're going to see, you look at 2024 clubhouse wages, about 150 grand. 2025 was almost 200 grand. This has a bit to do with who the chess players were on the table, right? So we had a full-time permanent manager starting the season, and then we didn't, so we had to bring in extra people to cover while he was on leave, and that gets expensive. So my hope is going into this year, we can get back around that $150,000 point in the clubhouse. My current team thinks that's going to be just fine. We just staff a little bit better, watch our shifts a little bit better, and I think that's going to work out okay.
I was just gonna say it's encouraging that our numbers have kind of leveled off and they've not dropped down to pre-COVID, which we were kind of waiting to see that happen. Yeah. But we've had 3 or 4 3 consistent years of mid 800s, or so. I mean,
I know
if that's the ongoing, that's
It's on good.
can't ask for. Well, you can always ask for more, but
I need about 300,000.
I mean, that's great.
You're exactly right. You will remember, those of us that were here at the time were saying, what if 2022 goes back to 475,000?
That's a worry.
Then what? Because at that point we were deciding on full-time permanent pro. We were deciding on more permanent positions, and we thought, man, if this goes back down to those levels, we're going to be hurting. Yeah. And it's amazing to see what something like a pandemic introducing all these people to the sport did. Mm-hmm. Also, that wasn't the only thing. I mean, the youth program advanced miles in that time.
Agreed.
And got way more people involved in those kind of things, and we've retained them, and that says something. I'm pleased about that. We have retained those programs. I'm encouraged this year about enhancing our leagues, our tournaments, those types of things. I think are going to be much better organized this year because I have someone focusing on that. We're probably another year away from getting those mid-tier tournaments, Counselor. We've talked about that before because we need the clubhouse and we need we have to get into the rotation of getting those like a couple years in advance. So those applications have started, and those are much more lucrative than a local community fundraiser, which are important, but they're just much more lucrative. So the golf board is recommending a small increase across the board on fees. We haven't moved them for a couple of years, and so we are looking really just inflationary to keep that in place. I gave Councillor Kennedy a proposal tonight at 6% across the board. Not in every category, but most categories. We'll talk about that as a board, and I'll let you know, Council, how we... Oh, for you new councillors, I should mention, the fees and charges policies for everything the town charges, pool, rink, that's a council policy. You guys, we'll bring that to you for updates from time to time. The golf rates and fees is an administration policy. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons is that we would want to do a promotion. We would have some slow days on a Wednesday. We could see the tee sheet, and it's like, man, we should do a promo. I got to get to council and get a motion to be able to amend the policy. Oh, well, then it's not going to be this week or next week. And so we changed that so that administratively I can approve those kind of things, because sometimes, you start looking at your tee sheet and then you run a promo out there for Thursday mornings for half price or something, and we couldn't do that very well when it was under council's purview, but you should always be aware of it. Like, I want you to be very comfortable with it. We just changed it so we could expedite changes in prices. So if there's any questions on that, like I said, when you take out that transfer to reserves, we did have a $68,732 profit operation.
You did say that you've now got you're ready to put it out to bid tender.
So Councillor Kenley and I met yesterday afternoon, just at end of day. They sent us all the changes. It was basically an amendment to HVAC, electrical, roof, structure. I think there was 4 or 5 documents.
Thing hasn't changed. It's just
they did all these amendment documents, and so they sent us all yesterday. We went through it, and I told them this morning to proceed with the tender package.
And he'll be involved
with Southwest Construction.
Okay, so they're going to tender it out, and whoever wants to bid on it then.
Yeah.
10 days.
Will they be bidding on it too?
Well, no, they're looking for all the subs.
Okay.
They're looking to find people to carry out all the disciplines. That's what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You've asked to be involved.
Yes, and it was in my email again this morning saying, when that tender package is ready, you make sure I have access to it to get it out to our locals, and we'll start calling them.
We didn't have much luck last time. Nobody wanted to do it. So
no, the whole region, we had poor bids.
But you think it'll be better this time?
We're gonna find out. Time's gonna tell, Counselor.
Sorry, Counselor Smith asked the question. It just got missed. 10 days ish.
Middle of next week, they think they'll have the tender packages ready. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all the drawings are done, all the engineering stamped done. We looked at all that. It's ready to go. Yeah, it's all stamped. I promise.
I said one last question. Do you remember what the approximate payment was on the loan that we were going to take? You don't have to tell me now. I just was trying to just think of it. It was 1.5, and I'm just trying to remember what that would be.
Don't hold me exactly because I can't pull. I've amended this.
That's fine. We can look at it later.
79,000 bucks a year,
Okay.
78,000 bucks a year.
Okay.
I want to say because I think we planned on about a quarter of it last year, just for the last quarter of the year. But I can confirm that for you for sure. I'll send that out. You've been getting a few emails from me on loose ends from previous meetings.
Yeah.
And we'll move on.
So down the road a ways, after the clubhouse is finished, will you be renting it out for things like wedding receptions and stuff? And does that bring much of an income in?
Good question. And I don't know that for sure. I mean, it would make sense that if the facility's there, a lot of it will depend on our food service contractor.
Mm-hmm.
So whether they want to be open year round, whether there's enough traffic for them to want to be open year round, and if they want to provide that type of thing on an event basis, and they may very well. So we'll see. Yeah, we got to look at that offset of keeping it open and warm. And
yeah, the reason I bring it up is because I've attended lots of those, and it seems like they're very, good.
The problem is that you have to staff it year round to keep it open year round. None of the small golf courses I'm aware of are open year round that I know of. I don't think even Crow's Nest is, but they could be. But Raymond McGrath, they go till October, November, and then they shut it down. But we'll see if some, like you said, depends on the food contractor if they want to take a shot at it.
But that's how it was designed. It was designed to be used as whatever our community needs it.
I was just gonna.
Last comment, then we'll
It
move
doesn't
on.
take staffing full time. It just takes having a staff member there for the day or two.
And if it's
well,
a
and
food
if your food service contractor can do it,
yeah.
and you have
Well,
an
even if they don't
arrangement-
want to do it, would
Yeah.
we not be interested in letting them use the venue?
Again, it depends if we want to keep it warm.
Anyways,
all winter.
that's
Council.
all that kind of stuff.
We'll
We'll
figure
have to
that
look
out.
at, yeah.
That's
For another day.
All right, let's
Let's build it first.
Yeah, let's get it.
guys, let's just
Build it first.
I completely agree with that.
strategic plans. Let's talk about hospital. Mayor, could you enlighten us a little bit more on what you found out up there? All we saw was $74 million. That's all we saw.
Yep. Happy to. So it was fantastic. So the town of Cardston is getting a new hospital. We met with a special thank you to Minister Scow. According to the Premier, if it weren't for him, it wouldn't be happening. He had a final pitch, and the Premier said it was the last thing to be cut. Well, there was that and one other thing. And because of his final pitch, it didn't get cut. The other thing did. I don't know what that was, but let them be angry. And so, yes, we have been $74 million has been allocated over the next 3 years. Over 6 years, it is a lot bigger, and the province will be announcing that. As far as the location, because we're all getting hit up about the location, the province next month now. So in April, we'll be doing a groundbreaking sign put up and that will be their news to tell. So we're not saying where it's going to be. The province will be announcing that. And so, we were super excited. We had Dr. Justin Lowe was there. I was up there, and it was fantastic. It was a great time, and we're super thankful. It's going to bring an incredible building to the town of Cardston, which is it's just huge. I mean, it's
everybody
just,
in town needs to pretend they don't know where it's going.
It's the worst kept secret.
we're just not confirming.
Yeah.
What is
We're
it
just
we
not
say?
saying.
We're just not confirming or denying.
That's it.
That's what I've been saying.
Stay tuned.
So does that answer your
Yes,
questions?
it does. Thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to touch on, as we start using CCWs to further areas in your strategic plan, I thought we should touch on this one first. Because even from when we developed this a mere couple of weeks ago, some of these things are a little bit different. So what you have on the sheet in front of you that I handed out was, it's the section of hospital and health plans. And then there's a draft letter behind it. I wanted to go through this for a few minutes, and you had 2 year one priorities. One was actively market and position Cardston as a healthcare hub, and the second was to prepare targeted advocacy packages. Now that one seems like we might have done all right because the hospital has been announced. However, I think we need to talk about advocating for being involved in the process over the next few years. I think that's going to be quite important to us. So halfway through that page, I just have March 3rd, 2026 discussion. I'm going to actually create a document where I have updates for you on all the categories, each CCW. So just, again, what I have here, in light of recent events, administration would like to discuss this item. So how do we want to structure advocacy at this point? Likely something about getting involved in the process. And I've written a letter to Minister Jones, which was also in this package, as an idea to say, and by the way, I texted MLA Scow and said, is this the right recipient? Is this who we need to be talking to? He said that's the case. So in my mind, this is the shift in advocacy to say, look, we just want to make sure we're at the table. We want to be able to make sure that the amenities that we're hearing a hospital in our area needs, they're being heard. We want to make sure that from a planning and land use perspective that we have some input. Now we control that lever at the development permit, by the way. So from a planning perspective, we have control. But many of you know that if it's allowed in the zone, you as a council don't really have much to say about it, the precise elements of it. So I'd rather see some councillors at the table early on, reflecting community concerns and interests.
So on that, I can say that when we met with the Premier and Minister Scow was there as well, that was something that I advocated very strongly about. And Cheryl Seaborn, who she wasn't there, but we talked about it. And that was between AHS wanting to be a part of it, which is who she represented, and the town. I said, we definitely want to be at that table. We want to hear what's going on. We don't want a facility. Let me rephrase that. We're happy to have a facility built, but we want to be at the table in helping, not have something go up and we had no say and we don't know what's going on. And when we had this discussion, Premier and Minister Scow were absolutely, of course, the town will be at the table. So this isn't going to come as new news because Dr. Lowe and I both had very strongly had said we need to be at this, and they said, you bet.
So as far as advocacy, and we have this draft letter here, is that just our next step? I mean, this is so early still, right? This is very, very early. I had a comment in here about, the old site and stuff, but honestly, that might be a conversation 4 years from now before we need to get too worried about it, unless you feel strongly otherwise, unless you really want in early on that. But I'm not sure we can even get a reasonable conversation on
Like what they're doing with the old.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's just so premature.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking for any feedback on how we approach advocacy, because it isn't about can we please get a hospital anymore.
No.
It's
That's
different.
what's going to be in that hospital. That's important to me, at least, anyhow.
Sorry, two things. So I can say that actually the Premier was the one who brought up. So now what's going to happen to the old hospital? What will happen to that old site? How does that play out? And I hopped on it and said, great question. That land, will it be cleared off and brought back to the town? Because that's a great idea. And so she too had that question, like, how's that playing out? What's that look like? Personally, I think this letter is fantastic for our next step of being ready. I also would like to add, I think it would be appropriate for council to send a letter of appreciation to Minister Scow for representing us and going to bat for us. I think that's something that we should be doing, personally.
You want to make a recommendation to council for that letter?
I'm all over that.
And I can have it at your next meeting for approval.
Clearly, I'd like to make a recommendation that we send a letter of appreciation to Minister Scow for his work on the efforts of our community.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Really?
And then,
Think about it, counselor.
and then just with, I guess, kind of head nods, you're okay for this to get on letterhead and bring back to the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So the other part of this, the next thing that you wanted to do was really market and position Cardston. I had a chance to visit with Luke from YOLO Nomads. So we talked about him before. This is a company that markets in the urban centers for people to come out into the rural areas and get out of the city. The mayor's had a presentation from Luke before in another meeting. And so I called him and I said, Luke, what do you think about this idea of marketing, starting a very intentional multi-year marketing campaign to all these contacts we've been able to mine over the last couple of years about healthcare and availability of a family doctor and a new hospital facility and you know, chiropractors and dentists and capacity in the community. And he got so excited about it. He was like, that would be a huge campaign in our major cities across Canada. He was telling me about his father who can't get into a doctor, just a family doctor for a routine thing in Edmonton. And he says, man, can I please work on this? And I said, well, put a proposal together. I said, I want to see one actually over the entire term. So I want to see it for 4 years and what that looks like. And get it to me in the next couple of weeks and I'll take it to my council. I think with YOLO Nomads, their specialty is marketing to the city dwellers to come. And we've done it for 2 years now. We have hundreds of people that have downloaded our brochure and give us their phone number and their email saying, this is something of interest to me. So just so you know, Mayor, because you were in that meeting, I told him this was not part of our regional marketing campaign with the other three communities.
Okay.
That we would be running this separately. We would still participate in the regional stuff with the general information, you know, the whole county, where this was, you know, Cardston is where you come if you want a family doctor. Cardston is where you come if you want a state-of-the-art hospital that'll be around for the rest of your life. You know, that's, and so he wants to be able to start talking to the clinic, the doctors, the chiropractors, the massage therapists, the dentists, and really put a package together saying, you can come here and be well taken care of. And for you with young families, you can get a family doctor. For you that are a little older, you can get taken care of here in the small community and get out of town. So he thinks it's a slam dunk campaign from Vancouver to Toronto.
So does he think
Hey, my house
he'll
value
campaign
will
for
go up a little bit
doctors as
now.
well? I just read a thing where a person, whatever they're at in Edmonton, I think, he sat in the ER for 16 hours and had appendicitis. If we can bring a doctor out here that has got some surgical skill, I don't know how we're going to do that. My son had to go from Calgary to Cardston to Lethbridge to get his appendix out. That's the kind of thing I'd like to see as well in this marketing thing. If we can convince.
I mean, we're not marketing directly to doctors
No, we're not.
necessarily.
Yeah, I got you. But
Yeah.
I would just, as part of our hospital, I don't know how we go about doing it. Maybe people didn't want to come out here. Maybe they do. But it should be nice to have a Dr. Russell around when we had babies back in the day. We don't have that.
And I think the new facility really piques interest for specialists, right?
So, yeah.
You look at communities like Canmore. If you go to a specialist in Alberta, there's a good chance you're going to Canmore.
Yeah.
Because they
Sports medicine.
that's where they want to be, right?
Yeah.
So,
People would
We've
love
got-
here, but
Yeah, here
yeah.
we're 30 minutes from the mountains. for crying out
personally.
loud.
So I think I'm going to get this proposal. We'll look at other firms that do this too. But because we've worked with these guys for a couple of years, we've mined some really good data with them. I'm really interested to see what he can provide us. But he thought this was going to be as successful a campaign as a guy could put out.
Good.
Does he charge for anything?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so-
There'll be a price tag to
Yeah.
it for sure.
So have we discussed that or no?
Well, we've
Think we
discussed
give us
our
12.
annual with them,
Yeah.
but that's quite small.
Okay.
I expect this to, to be, I don't want to say substantial, but we'll spend.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I should have it in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Think of the
that's
property tax you're gonna get.
Well, and I was just gonna say, and that's gonna lead us into our housing talks, right? And
Right.
stuff like that. Like
Which
if we're bringing more people in and promoting to bring more people in, then that's gonna lead to, okay, where are they gonna be? Where are they gonna?
I was just gonna say, if we're talking about that, I would really like us to engage our contractors and our developers and our builders and try to, like I kind of talked to you, like how do we make it a little more easy for them to not so much build estate homes, but build some like affordable housing or apartments, like that people could, that I don't know how we can trigger it to like healthcare only, or like we don't have places for people to stay, and that's why we don't. One of the reasons we don't
It's big as the problem.
attain people is, but I just want to I don't know how we go about, like, if it's going through the contractors, the developers, or making it easier, saving a buck for them here or there. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, we went down this road pretty thoroughly about 7 or 8 years
Yeah.
ago. And one of the challenges is, and I don't blame them at all, is that our contractors, our local contractors generally, and I don't want to cast this wide of a net, they've found a niche in building kind of
Yep.
bigger homes where they can do 1 or 2 a year and there's enough margin in them that they can focus on that and do that.
So maybe it's outside of our.
We haven't found, we talked to contractors quite a lot and they were concerned about the risk and margin of accessible housing.
Yeah.
Now, to your point, Councillor, are there things from permitting, subdivision, utility, all those things where we can contribute? Absolutely. That's it. You have those levers to
Which
pull.
I would think we should do.
Those are your levers to pull, and we need to look at where the right space is for those.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to talk about really on this one is this was actually a term priority. This was a later priority when we talked about this 2 weeks ago, because again, we didn't know what we were getting now. And the question is, any project like this is a couple of years out before a shovel's turned. I hate to be that guy, but it just is. And my question was, how do we want to approach housing, and how aggressive as a council do you want to be? It can be everywhere from we are the capital for a large-scale project. It's that we marry up, and I have in here like real estate investment trusts in a certain sector with builders. It can be a lot of things that your risk is anywhere on a spectrum.
But how much can we actually do? We're limited by how much we're allowed to spend in this province, in this town.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And the $30 million apartment building,
Yeah.
take care of that in a hurry.
I hear you.
So we've talked about this a little bit, but Councillor, maybe it isn't our cash. Maybe it's we know the right people.
Yeah.
That we grab this and we grab this, and then with the town doing like Councillor Kenley was just talking about RN stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not us putting up the big ticket numbers, because we got a lot going on right now with big ticket numbers.
Putting that kind of number, but
So
anything we can do to encourage these guys.
right.
To
So, but I think the key is I like the idea of where the networker, where the coming together, we're bringing the corporations, the businesses, whoever it is that have that sweet little honeypot, we're bringing them together to Cardston to say, we're willing to work with you. Here's what we can do on our end, because we want to make some affordable housing for hospital workers and
who knows, because of the announcement, you might get someone in here in the next 2 years.
Well,
saying,
we're already getting phone calls.
but like I'm just saying, maybe someone wants to build
Yeah. We're getting calls.
But I mean, let me be very frank. If you were a developer and wanted to build a 30-unit apartment building right now, where would you put it? I don't know the answer to that.
I know a good spot.
I don't know. Well,
Yeah, you do.
but it needs some preparation. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah.
Okay, so
You know a guy.
we can play in that role.
I was gonna
Like
say
that's a
EJ would
space
love
we
it.
could potentially help in. Is site preparation and those kind of things too. So I just wanted to get a bit of a feel for, are we willing to be partners at some level? Are we willing to spend the legal up front now to understand if we can limit to certain employers and those types of things? Because these are all going to cost, right? And I need to get some support from you before we start incurring those costs.
I think we find it very difficult to try and say it's only for these people. I think we might run into a
We
roadblock.
may.
The question.
I was just gonna say, we had a guy here 2 or 3 years ago that proposed it was like a 40-unit apartment building, but they kind of balked when we wanted an extra 30 or 40 grand.
Whatever it was.
And I'm like, is it prudent for us to like ask them, like,
Sure.
hey, this is what's going on, or do you want a retry at this kind of thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be a little careful on that one, but
I'm trying to remember who it was, but
I know
I-
what you're talking
Yeah, me too.
maybe I don't want to remember.
I think
It doesn't help the case.
I think administration's ask from us is essentially, are we okay to say yes to administration, to look into this a little further, talk with our lawyers, get some more information. Information is power. We're in a real incredible little bubble right now with the hospital coming. we need to act. We can't drag our feet. Let's be prepared. Let's know what's coming. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I think we need to, if there's money that needs to be spent to look into this, get her done.
Well, I think, sorry.
That's what.
Okay.
Well, I think that our strategic planning session indicated or bore out
Absolutely.
the fact that we all feel that way,
Absolutely.
right? So, absolutely, we need to do what we can to promote development, and that means spending some money. We're
Let's go.
Which I feel like we're on the road, maybe on the other side of town to kind of go in that route, but with the East Area Structure Plan and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we're meeting a month. Yeah,
April.
yeah, we're meeting first of April on West Area Structure Plan again. We'll have some new concepts to look at, and so all that stuff is
Like Mayor said,
is
that'd be
moving
big on it.
along. Which is
I know
great.
in the past, the Chinook Foundation's talked about housing, but not necessarily, I think more senior housing, or maybe not. They would run that show, but I guess Councillor Selk could check out the year on that too.
Actually, it's a really good question, if I might, Councillor Court. When it comes to things like grant monies, and municipalities and housing foundations can apply for some of those federal programs. And we have new management at the Chinook, and so we don't know that direction from the board yet. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But it would be good to at least inquire and say, do you guys want to be at the table when we're looking at non-seniors housing, on other forms of housing?
Help yourself.
I think the simple answer, Jeff, is yes.
Okay.
Anything else on this? What else we need to look at?
That was what I had for you. Just wanted to, again, that one's already so much changed and since the time we passed it last council meeting. And it's great. That's great news.
Okay, what are we getting up to here now? Correspondence, is ready for? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Yeah, I think you're there. Whoa.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, all in favor. So our meeting-
We're like,
our meeting's this.